If you've been following my channel the last few days, you'll know that I've been focusing predominantly on David Tennant and the 60th anniversary, and that makes sense as that's what we're going to be seeing next in 2023. But I thought I'd divert our attention away from that for a sec to talk about Series 14, and 5 things that I personally would like to see from the new series. I'm thinking this also might be part 1, and part 2, I'll ask you guys what you'd like to see from Series 14. And I mean, we've got plenty of time because the series is probably well over a year away at this point.
They ask you how you are, you just have to say that you're fine when you're not really fine, but you just can't get into it because they would never understand.
But before we get into it, if you could do me a teeny tiny little favour and click that subscribe button, that'd be ever so much appreciated. We are trying to get to 17,000 subscribers by the end of this month, so any support would be very much appreciated on that front. But with that said, let's get into the video. So the first thing I think I would like to see from the new series, Series 14 of the new RTD era, is more new compelling villains. Now, as much as I love the legacy villains, the Daleks, the Cybermen, the Weeping Angels, the Sontarans, I'm sort of feeling a bit sick of them at this point. And that's not because I think they're bad, but simply because I think we've seen so much of them of late. And while I wouldn't be opposed to perhaps a Series 1 format of returning villains where you get a couple, say in Series 1 you get the Autons and the Daleks, I don't want there to be purely returning villains or mostly returning villains, as it's felt like it has been for the last few series now. And I'm kind of confident in RTD to give us new compelling villains, because his era has some of the most iconic villains or characters in Doctor Who history, in my opinion. The Ood, the Judoon, the Adipose, the Slitheen, all of which have become iconic in their own right. And I think part of the reason, for me at least, why Russell T Davies's characters work so well is because a lot of his villains and aliens serve a specific function within universe. So for example, the Judoon are the police force, the Ood are the slave race, and the Slitheen are sort of the outer space dodgy dealers, Del Boy equivalents, essentially. And I think that also makes the world a lot more connected, something I'll come back to a bit later on. But I think that's what helps these monsters feel iconic to me, is that they perform a specific function. Even things like the Reapers, which to be fair weren't in a story written by RTD but were in his era, serve as the protectors of the timeline, I guess. So I think that's what I want. I want some new compelling villains that serve functions within universe. And I think actually that's one of the reasons the Kablam bots are some of my favourite entities in the Chris Chibnall era, because they serve a function within universe. As I said, if Judoon are the police force and the Ood are the slave race, then it makes sense for the Kablam bots to be the postal service. And I wouldn't mind them continuing onwards, but yeah, new compelling villains who serve a function in universe is something that I really, really want for the next era. The next thing I want for the next era is I want this new era to be able to do the things that RTD couldn't do originally. And what I mean by that is, his original era, for example, is extremely Earth-based. In Series 1, for example, you basically only go to Earth in different periods, or a satellite orbiting Earth itself. And obviously that did get more expansive as the series progressed, but by and large you're still relatively confined to Earth. And if all those rumours of a bigger budget as a result of the Disney Plus deal are true, I'd like to see some more space stories sprinkled in. Obviously I understand the importance of having Earth to ground the series, but I'd still like a couple more spacefaring adventures than we had the first time round. I also think as well that his first era is very much in tone with the 2000s. It's very fitting of the 2000s. It's cheesy, it's camp, it's optimistic. And I'd like to see perhaps a slightly more dark series of Doctor Who, or at least a more serious series of Doctor Who under RTD. Obviously still having some of his trademark camp and silly, but I guess what I'm saying is more reflective of the 2020s, as RTD shows like Years and Years, to me, have proven that he can do serious events really, really well. And I'd like to see how he would do that with a new era of Doctor Who. Obviously, that's not to say his previous era didn't have moments of seriousness as well, but I guess what I'm saying is an updated tone to fit with the 2020s, as his original era fit with the 2000s, taking a lot of its inspiration from the likes of Buffy the Vampire Slayer and things like that. The third thing I want, and I think this might be a little bit controversial, I'm not sure, but I personally would like a return to the one companion and the Doctor dynamic that was prevalent throughout the earlier years of New Who. I personally am of the belief that it works much better than a bigger TARDIS team. If you are going to have a third character, I would introduce it in the same way as they did perhaps, say, Amy and the Ponds, or Rose and her extended family. Start off with one and then expand the other characters from there, rather than starting off with three, as I think it's just too much. And I've personally always just preferred smaller TARDIS dynamics a little bit. I would rather have two really strong central characters as opposed to four central characters that get stuff spread out between them. If Russell does decide to do a bigger TARDIS team, I would imagine he'd be able to do it well. I just personally always prefer smaller TARDIS teams. Personally, I know that a lot of people, when the Chibnall era was beginning, were saying that they'd like a return to larger TARDIS teams, but I think now that we've had that for a while, I'm kind of of the opinion of, let's go back a bit, let's go back to how we were before. The fourth thing I would like from Series 14, and this is something that I kind of alluded to earlier, is a return to the Russell T Davies era style of world building. Now, this is something that you hear constant praise for. Russell T Davies crafted a world of Doctor Who that felt like it was constantly alive and moving and evolving, and things were always happening in it. This is in no small part due to the spin-offs that occurred surrounding his era, but I think you can do it even within the main show itself. As I said previously, you've got things like the Jadoon and the Shadow Proclamation, you've got things like New Earth, the Bad Wolf Institute, all of these things link together and create a universe that feels simultaneously like it all occupies the same space, and also feels expansive. Things like the Great and Bountiful Human Empire as well is a constant running thread throughout his era. And I think it just makes the world feel so much more alive when you have these different recurring elements. I love the scene at the end of Time Part 2 where you have all the monsters in a bar together. That's something you could only really do in the Russell era because of the concerted effort made to make the universe feel alive and cohesive and consistent, something that other showrunners haven't prioritized as much. Moffat prioritized these wacky, crazy ideas and sort of discarded world building to an extent, and then with Chibnall as well, he largely did his own thing and kind of didn't really focus too much on creating a cohesive world. And I personally would love to see a return to that style of showrunning in the future. Give us some planets that do reoccur, give us some companies that reoccur, give us some organizations, some villains that all exist within this world, but also make it feel expansive. Like, there's that bit in Bad Wolf Parting the Ways where at the game station you hear about things like the Face of Bo and stuff like that, and it all just makes the universe feel so much more alive to me. So yeah, a return to world building would be a really cool thing for the next era. The final one, and this is kind of something I don't want from Series 14, I guess, but I might as well put it in because, in my opinion, this is the most crucial thing for me with Series 14. Please, for the love of God, no lore. No big lore, no Time Lost Child, no anything like that. I want a fresh start, because as well as that, we're coming off the back of not only Power of the Doctor, 360th anniversary specials, Flux as well, all very much tied to pre-existing iconography, elements, and arcs. I think we need a fresh start. Obviously, you can have a couple of legacy villains in there, like you did with Series 1, for example, or Series 5, but we need that fresh start. We need that clean slate to be able to tell these stories from. If we go into this new era and we start getting involved in Time Lord lore again, I'm not going to be happy. Can we leave the Time Lords and Gallifrey alone for a couple of seasons, Russell, please? Give the Master a break as well. I'm so over Gallifrey at this point. We need to move on. We've done Gallifrey to death at this point. It's been destroyed, brought back again, and destroyed again. We can leave that for a bit. The Time War is done. Let's have something new. Maybe let's have an arc that's more character-based, less focused on previously established elements. Let's just have a new clean slate, please. That is ultimately, if you take away anything from this video, my ultimate hope. Clean slate for Series 14. I think it's more than okay for the 60th anniversary to be a celebration of all that came before, and for Power of the Doctor to kind of do the same as the 100-year anniversary of the BBC. But after all of that celebratory stuff that we'd have had at that point, I think it's crucial that Series 14 acts as a fresh, clear jumping on point. Like, I don't want to see a returning companion in Series 14. Series 15, perhaps, maybe down the line, once the series has been reintroduced to a new audience. Yeah, okay, I wouldn't mind that as much. But for one series, new characters exclusively, in terms of main characters, and then maybe occasional appearances from legacy villains. Yeah, we just need a fresh start. But those are my 5 things that I'd like from Doctor Who Series 14. Let me know in the comments below what you'd like to see from Doctor Who Series 14. Like this video if you enjoyed, subscribe if you're new, and I will see you later.